Trevor Noah is an amazing comedian. Really funny guy. Loved him on the Daily Show. I like his comedy a lot, and he has a great podcast out. I think it's called the What Now podcast. A great interview with Halle Berry, by the way, and I love Halle
Oh, I
Berry.
love her.
Oh my gosh, it was a really great interview. I love Halle Berry so much. Halle, I would love to have you on the show out there. I love you so
Oh,
much.
that would be a dream guest for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. I had a chance to interview her years ago for the call, but it didn't work out scheduling. But
Oh.
I just my dream interview. Anyway, Trevor Noah's from South Africa. We all know the
Mm-hmm.
history of South Africa, apartheid and so on.
Right.
And he made some recent comments about segregation in America and asking a question if integration was a good thing, right? And segregation was solidified with the horrific court decision in 1896 called Plessy versus Ferguson. And I've
Mm-hmm.
covered Homer Plessy. It's on my YouTube page. It was to challenge these segregation laws that were on the rise. So many of our ancestors fought back tooth and nail against segregation, even before Dr. King. So many. Um, it was a long game. We're talking about 1896. Plessy versus Ferguson goes into law. 1877, we have the Compromise of 1877. Segregation, Jim Crow was essentially would gut the beginnings of it in 1877. Would gut Reconstruction completely,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But here is Trevor Noah. Again, like this dude a lot. Never met him before, but I like him a lot. Asking this question about segregation and integration and so on. Listen to this.
Do you think that integration was the right move? Like, and now I'm separating two things because I know in America people are like, well, of course, I mean, there was racism and there's segregation, and I go, yeah, no, I'm separating them. Let's separate someone being oppressed and someone not being able to get a job and someone not being able to get a bank loan. Let's take all of those, the negative things away, because I'll put myself out personally and say, I think whether we're talking about gifted kids who are anomalous, let's say, to the norm, whether we're talking about and I mean anything that does not fit into a category. I think the part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because, have you been to Finland?
It's very homogenous.
I've been to Finland. You know who's in Finland? Finnish people. That's it. That's it. And because they're all Finnish, there's an idea of like, no, we all head in the same direction. We all know what our actions mean. Now, even if you shout at me, I know what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means.
Yeah.
Right? I know I'm prefacing it with a lot because
Yes.
it's a loaded question.
Yes.
But I would love to know if you think integration was the right solution, maybe, on the other side of, what
Yeah.
America, of
Okay,
civil rights.
let's take it
No,
down. Let's
I
take it down. All right, and then there's a professor on there that's talking. So I want to say this, and I mean this respectfully. There is a myth that's been going around for a very long time that life was better for black people under segregation or under Jim Crow. My grandfather was born and raised in the Jim Crow South, Reese.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in the 1920s. He was part of the Great Migration to Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
right? My grandfather would tell me so many stories of living in Jim Crow, Virginia, Goochland, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I never once heard him say, Reese, gosh, I'd love to go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to go back to the 1950s. I'd love to go back to the 1940s. I've never heard him say that. And there's also this myth, Reese, that we as black folks, we were so united during segregation. We were so united during Jim Crow that we were just this beacon of being united. Forgetting you had Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois going at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Forgetting infighting between with leaders. I want to be clear here. In my opinion, humbly, Trevor Noah saying that would be like saying, was ending apartheid a good thing? And
Right.
the architects of apartheid were literally inspired by Jim Crow laws.
Mhm.
Let me give you some of their laws in apartheid. The Population Registration Act, it codified racial hierarchy. The Bantu Education Act, it created a separate education system for black students.
Mhm.
The Group Areas Act, it forced black people into living in certain areas. What does that sound like?
Redlining. Mhm.
Right, exactly. So I'm I'm saying this to say I know 'cause I know a lot of people feel this way, and oftentimes folks bring up Malcolm X. Say, well, Malcolm X was for segregation. No, he wasn't. He was a separatist.
Mhm.
The Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, black nationalists. Segregation was still under white rule.
Right.
It was under white rule. Malcolm X and they believed in a separate nation altogether.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
didn't believe segregation is literally life under white rule.
Mhm.
I want to give some numbers. I know you're a data girl. You like numbers, right?
Mhm. Sure do.
The black poverty rate in 1959, Reese, was 55.1%.
Mm.
55.1%. That is horrific. By 1969, only 5 years after the Civil Rights Act in 1964, which basically ends Jim Crow on paper, stress Jim Crow on
Mhm.
paper,
Mhm.
we're down to 32.2% poverty rate. Not saying that's perfect, but
Right.
that's a significant jump within 10 years.
Mhm.
As of 2023, the black poverty rate is 17.9%.
Yeah.
There's also all this talk about Dr. King would say that we integrated into a burning house. I understand why he would say that. I mean,
Right.
Dr. King was shot and killed in 1968. You know, he wouldn't go on to see the amount of black folks who would be in Congress. He wouldn't go on to see the amazing work that Maynard Jackson did
Mhm.
in Atlanta, Georgia. He wouldn't go on to see that Maryland has what is it, two of the wealthiest black counties in the country, right? He
Mhm.
wouldn't go on to. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but I'm going to tell you, I don't want to go back to how my grandfather grew up.
Mhm.
And I'm
Right.
not saying he said that, but it's such a. I've been hearing this a lot because Byron Donalds alluded to this. A black
Right.
family was stronger. And
With
I
his
just want to
white
go on a
wife.
couple, and there's that.
His white
But I
second
just want to
wife.
go on a
I
couple.
should put that
Right.
in there.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah, we did a whole thing on that. But I want to talk about the idea of black-owned businesses.
Mhm.
It is true. Now, I don't have the exact number. I don't know if they had the number back then. There were a good amount of black-owned businesses during the Jim Crow era. But here's the thing. They faced so many challenges. They faced constant terror. A
Yep.
lot of them didn't last. Black banks would fail. Black
Mhm.
businesses burned to the ground. You think about Tulsa, Oklahoma. White
Mhm.
terrorism was codified into law.
Mhm.
So when he says, well, let's separate the racism from it, you can't really do that's the very nature
That's literally
of
the point.
segregation.
Like what?
That's literally the message. That's the message. And I saw all these right wing people jumping on that because their vision, we've been saying this for years, Reese, they want to gut the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we
Mhm.
don't need that anymore. There isn't a point of that. And ultimately, the biggest sin of segregation is, like I said earlier, it ended Reconstruction.
Mhm.
It ends which still was a time of great horror and great fear. You know, we I don't think we want to. I never forget when Killer Mike said, "America was great for black people 7 years after the Civil War." What?
People just be saying shit.
What? By the 1920s, there was a significant amount of black farmers who had land. The
Mhm.
Department of Agriculture began stealing that land from black people. Segregation, Jim Crow was not good. Now, I get people say that it was less about integration and more about assimilating. I understand that. There are things that were obviously lost, but there's this whole myth that we had these amazing, black schools that were thriving. Maybe some did, but
Yeah.
black schools were oftentimes very far away from public
Mm-hmm.
transportation. That's part of the
Mm-hmm.
reason why Brown v. Board of Education comes along, because
Mm-hmm.
the family who started that lawsuit, they were too far away from a black school, so
Mm-hmm.
the only
Mm-hmm.
option was the white school.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's not romanticize and don't even get me started on how black women were treated during Jim Crow.
Oh, they just gonna skip over that shit. When we talk about the black experience, what black women experience, that don't really count. That don't count at all.
That's why they're still mad at the color purple, some people, because that was just too much. That was just too much.
Right.
But I just want to say respectfully, whether it's apartheid or Jim Crow, no. Go back and read articles from The Messenger or The Crisis. There was infighting back then. I think it's strange. Oh, we were more united. I don't, come on now. Now, were there probably things that were lost? Sure, that happens because there are some people, it might open the door to grift a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Assimilation is sexy for some people. And the truth of the matter is, the majority of us, we still live very segregated. Our
Right.
schools are very segregated. Our neighborhoods are very segregated. But the key of ending Jim Crow laws was to have federal protections, and that's what they're trying to undo right now. But Reese, I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back. So that was and I'm not saying he said that, but that narrative out there, downplaying what that time was like, Jim Crow and apart. I mean, the amount of lynchings, the NAACP begins because of the constant and not saying we don't have lynchings today. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way, I mean, Ida B. Wells documenting this. So there wasn't anything redemptive or good about Jim Crow or segregation.
Yeah.
And I get the argument, oh, we integrated, we lost this, we lost that, we lost that. I
I don't even get that argument. Really. Not
Go
really.
ahead, Reese.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, what's the argument? What they talking about? What do we lose exactly? I'm confused. We still got our own shit, we still popping. So what is it that we gave up? I don't know. I mean, somebody can enlighten me because I haven't seen it. But I don't. First of all, I don't. Why? What the hell even made him even talk about that? I don't even want a person who don't even be around general admission black people to
Mm.
even talk about what is good for black people. When have you even seen Trevor Noah in the hood? When have you ever seen Trevor Noah around regular ass black people? It's possible that he does have regular homeboys or regular homegirls. So I don't even know how he's even equipped to talk about the black community or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't even thinking about black people. Maybe he was thinking about white people. He was talking about family and shit, how that works out for them. But what are you talking about? You're a famous comedian from South Africa who probably doesn't even associate with regular black people. I'm not talking about somebody who is well off, who is Ivy League educated. You're not in regular ass black neighborhoods on a day-to-day basis. Okay.
Reese, can I add this?
Yeah.
Here's what's really important. Part of the reason why, because there's still tons of issues after the 1964 Civil Rights Act,
Yeah.
but this goes back to what we've been talking about for, I guess, you 5 years and me 7 years, and you 2 years on your own show.
Mm-hmm.
The data is there. There's been improvement, not nearly enough.
Yeah.
But the minute that 1964 Civil Rights Act passes,
Mm-hmm.
the Republican Party at that point and Dixiecrats, they've been fighting tooth and nail to chip
Mm-hmm.
away at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there was this big rise of the black middle class in the early 1970s. I write about this in my book, The Grift.
Yeah.
By the
Mm-hmm.
1980s, that falls apart. Why does it fall apart? The war on drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, right? Mass incarceration. I can go on and on and on. They just like they fought for 50 years to overturn Roe v. Wade. They fought for it. They've been fighting for 60 years to overturn that 1964 Civil Rights Act, the
Mm-hmm.
1965 Voting Rights Act, the 1968 Fair Housing Act. So the reason why we haven't had the success that we should have, it's the same reason why Reconstruction failed. Because
Yeah.
once that goes into law, Reconstruction, they're fighting tooth and nail to destroy it. When they overturn that an 1875 Civil Rights Act in 1883, here's what they said in 1883. There must be some stage in the progress of his elevation where he takes the rank of a mere citizen and ceases to be the special favorite of the laws.
Not special favorite, honey.
and when his rights as a citizen or a man are to be protected in the ordinary modes by which other men's rights are protected. That's where they are now, 1883. Remix is y'all getting special treatment. Yeah. Y'all getting special treatment, DEI, Civil Rights Act, affirmative action, all that kind of stuff. No, we got to end this.
Yeah.
We don't even need it anymore. That's what they're saying there.
Right. The concept of segregation. It wasn't built on you get the best of y'all figure it out over there and we figure out over here. It wasn't
separate but equal.
It was never separate but equal. There's no benevolence in this country towards Black people as a whole thriving and progressing. There's actually so much animus that we're seeing a war on white people because the white people in the Republican MAGA party have decided that any additional progress for people who are not white, and in particular, they want to make Black people the poster board, is so intolerable that they're willing to sell down all the other white people right along with the Black people that they're stripping civil rights protection of it, that they're stripping research from on the name of equity is too woke. So now your Alzheimer's and shit ain't gonna get no damn research. Now your cancer ain't gonna get no research. Now the climate's gonna be fucked up. So how can you
medication skyrockets?
How can you an environment that sees not just the lack of white benevolence, but the white animus and the white nationalist aim to dismantle everything outside of what supports white billionaires and even pontificate or fantasize about whether segregation was actually a good thing? Hell no, it wasn't a good motherfucking thing. It never has and never will be. And if you're that interested in having that experience, well, we might end up getting there, but you're not gonna move your motherfucking ass down to Alabama or Louisiana with Jeff Landry trying to rewrite the damn Louisiana Constitution and shit, make it easier to incarcerate motherfuckers, make it easier to stop people and arrest them and all kind of shit. You're not gonna go there and have that experience. No, you're gonna be in your ivory towers.